Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Brothers and sisters, I hope everyone's well. I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everybody's having an amazing Ramadan. Just before we start Tafseer, I just wanted to kind of for myself and for all of us, just a little check. You know what? Today's the fifth fast of Ramadan. Today's the fifth fast of the month of Ramadan. 1/6 of the month has passed. How are we doing? What do we think that we can do better? What do we think that, you know what, we're doing okay, but we can do a little bit better? What do we think maybe there's some kind of weaknesses that we have? Those distractions that we have in our life, whatever your distraction is, right, whatever takes your time, whatever wastes time, how are we doing with all that? Right? Always, so this is, um, at these little points within Ramadan, and these points, the 1/6 of Ramadan has passed, 1/5 of Ramadan has passed. In the first 10 days, it's always good to just check ourselves and say, you know what, how am I doing? What is, how is Ramadan going for me? Right, so inshallah, just a little reminder for myself and a little reminder for all of us, inshallah. So let us start, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. So inshallah, today we are doing um, Surah Nisa, right, ayah number 148 until the end of Surah Al-Ma'idah. Right, so Surah Nisa, ayah number 148 is basically the beginning of the six juz. Right, so basically the beginning of the six juz, and we're going to go all the way until the quarter, until the end of Surah Al-Ma'idah. Right, basically like a quarter of the seventh juz. Now, Sheikh spoke about Surah An-Nisa yesterday, and touched on some of those ayat yesterday. And so I'm gonna, instead of speaking on any portion of the Surah An-Nisa, which is the small portion left, we're gonna go on to Surah Al-Ma'idah. Surah Al-Ma'idah is a surah that, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they mention that Surah Al-Ma'idah, when it was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Surah Al-Ma'idah was revealed at once. It was revealed in one revelation. And it was revealed while our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam was traveling. And the Sahaba radiallahu anhum that were there's multiple Sahaba radiallahu anhum that narrate this. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum that were there, they say that, we saw when Surah Al-Ma'idah was being revealed to our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And we were there, and he was on his camel, and the revelation was so heavy. And this is something that we have to know, that when our Prophet ﷺ used to get revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he used to see, sometimes our Prophet ﷺ, Aisha radiallahu anha says that our Prophet ﷺ, he would um he would be sweating on cold days. There was like this kind of heaviness that came with the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Some of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, Aisha radiallahu anha narrates this, Zayd radiallahu anhu narrates this. They say that, they on different occasions where our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so Aisha radiallahu anha basically says that our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his head was on my thigh. Aisha radiallahu anha says that she was probably sitting like cross-legged, or however she was sitting, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was lying down, and his head was on the thigh of Aisha radiallahu anha. She said that revelation started coming upon our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I swear, she says that she takes the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that I felt uh, like my thigh was gonna break, like the bone in my thigh was gonna break because of the heaviness of this revelation, right? Zayd radiallahu anhu, he says similarly that Rasulullah was once sitting with the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. It must have been very crowded, and so that Rasulullah's leg was upon the leg of Zayd radiallahu anhu. And he says that I felt the revelation started coming upon our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I felt like my leg was going to break. So the revelation coming, the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it came with a certain heaviness. Right? So, anyways, just moving forward, I just wanted to make this point that Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they saw when Surah Al-Ma'idah was being revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it was so heavy. Right? It was revealed. Number one, it was revealed at one time. The whole surah was revealed to our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but it was so heavy. This was so heavy. The revelation was so heavy upon our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the camel's neck. It was like the camel's neck was going to go onto the ground. It was like the camel kind of was pushed down by the revelation. right? So, anyways, this is Surah Al-Ma'idah. There's a couple of ayat that I want to touch on. So first, I want to touch on Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, ayah number 27 to ayah number 32. I wanted to touch on the story of Habil and Qabil, the story of Cain and Abel, the two sons of Adam alayhi salam. And we hear reference to them being made to it uh, in different places and so on and so forth, right or wrong. But we see reference that's made to it. And I thought that, you know what, this story, although many of us may know it, we may know kind of what it's about, we may know it without the details. I just wanted to go into to speak with it from the Quran so that we know where it is and take out a few lessons. There's a couple of lessons and one specific lesson that kind of speaks to our situation right now, right? So this is why I chose this passage. So Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says. Again, this is ayah number 27 from Surah Al-Ma'idah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ ابْنَيْ آدَمَ بِالْحَقِّ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, relate to them the story of the two sons of Adam alayhi salam and relate it with the truth. Relate it truthfully, relate it completely, and tell them what actually happened between these two sons, Cain and Abel. Right? So the two sons, there was Qabil, the older son, and there was Habil, the younger son. So now what happens, we'll go on into the ayah inshallah, but before we can understand that, what happens is Adam alayhi salam, we know that Adam alayhi salam, there was Adam alayhi salam, and there's Hawa, right? And his Adam alayhi salam and his wife, they had children, and now for the progeny to go forward, the children they would have to be marriage between the children of Adam and Hawa, right? So what had been sent down and the ruling that has been sent down by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specific for this scenario because there's no other option here, right? What was sent down by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was when they would have children, when Adam alayhi salam and his wife would have children, they would have they would always have twins. It would always be a boy and a girl, right? It would be a boy and a girl. Um, so the ruling was that the twins of the boy and the girl that are born together, right? They will not get married together, but they will get married to so the boy from this pair of twins would get married to the girl from another pair of twins, and the boy from that pair of twins will get married to the girl from this pair of twins, right? This was a ruling that was sent down by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now this is what happens. Qabil is an older brother, right? And if in translation in English, we call him Cain, right? So Qabil was the older brother, and he basically used to take care of. He was like a farmer, right? A farmer of crops and so on. Habil was a younger brother, right? And Habil, he was also a farmer, but he was a farmer of livestock, right? So, anyways, what happens is Qabil, his twin sister, right? The one that was his twin sister, the one that was married in the same, the one that was born in the same at the same time with Qabil, she was an extremely beautiful woman, right? Um, and Habil, his twin sister, was kind of she was kind of plain. She wasn't extremely beautiful. So now, when it comes time to getting married, when it comes time for them to get married, Habil basically tells Qabil and lets it be known that you know what, I want to get married uh to the sister, right? The beautiful sister. And so now at this time, Qabil, being the older brother, and he had a little bit of pride of him and so on and so forth, he basically says that you know what, this isn't going to happen. This is my sister that was born as my twin, and I have a greater right to get married to her, and so on and so forth. And there's this kind of back and forth that happens, and so they are told then that okay, both of you give sadaqah, both of you make a sacrifice, and whoever's sacrifice is accepted, this person is the one that will be. This will be a sign that this is the one that is going to be married to the beautiful daughter, right? So now what happens? Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says. إذ قربا قربانا فتقبل من أحدهما ولم يتقبل من الآخر. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, so let's just go back to the beginning of the ayah again, that relate upon them the story of the two sons of Adam with the truth, truthfully, right? إذ قربا قربانا فتقبل من أحدهما ولم يتقبل من الآخر. When they both offered a sacrifice. So what happens is the son that does livestock, Habil, the younger brother, he brings the best possible animal that he can, right? And he brings it as a sacrifice. And Qabil, on the other hand, he just brings like a bag full of grain. He doesn't give too much thought to it, right? So, anyways, إذ قربا قربانا, when they both offered a sacrifice, فتقبل من أحدهما ولم يتقبل من الآخر. And in the Sharias of the past, in the Sharias of the past, what would happen was when they would give sadaqah, when they would give an offering of sacrifice to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there would actually be a fire that would come down from the sky, and this would be a sign of acceptance, and the fire would come and it would consume whatever had been offered in sacrifice. This was a sign of the acceptance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now what happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says when they both offered a sacrifice, فَتُقُبِّلَ مِنْ أَحَدِهِمَا وَلَمْ يُتَقَبَّلْ مِنَ الْآخَرِ, and it was accepted from one of them, meaning it was accepted from Habil, from Abel, right? وَلَمْ يُتَقَبَّلْ مِنَ الْآخَرِ, and it wasn't accepted from the other. It wasn't accepted from Cain, right? So here now it becomes clear that okay, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, that Habil should get married to the beautiful daughter, as was the ruling of the time, right? So now what happens? This is another a lesson for us. So now what happens is his two things happen. His sadaqah is accepted, right? That's number one. And number two is that he's now going to be able to get married to the beautiful daughter. So now what happens is now the older brother, Cain, Qabil, now he starts, jealousy starts festering within him. He starts getting jealous, right? And we have to understand this is the first time that this has ever happened within history. This is the sons of Adam alayhi salam himself, right? The beginning of humanity, right? So now what happens? He says, قَالَ لَأَقْتُلَنَّكَ. He says, I'm gonna kill you. Cain says, I'm gonna kill you. And where does that thought even come from? This is the first time someone's even thinking this. You have to understand this. This is the first time that someone's even thinking of killing, right? He says, قَالَ لَأَقْتُلَنَّكَ. He says, I am most definitely gonna kill you. I'm gonna take your life, right? So where does this come from? This comes from hasad. It comes from jealousy. He was this jealousy. This as soon as this happened, he started getting jealous. And jealousy, it's stemming from his pride that you know what, I am better than my brother. I'm older than him. I was born with the beautiful daughter, right? So he thinks that somehow he is better than Habil, right? So there's that pride. Now when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees that the Habil will get married to the most beautiful daughter, right? Now there's this jealousy. And wallahi, this is one of the big points here in this passage, that jealousy is something that is completely, completely eats away. It's like acid for our deen. It's like acid for our deen. In one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he gives an example of hasad, hasad and hatred, both of these things, right? Either you're jealous of someone or you have some bad feelings about someone with regards to someone. You're always thinking bad things about that person. You don't have good things in your heart for that person. This is extremely dangerous for our deen. So here we see that it's what leads to the first murder in the history of mankind, right? But even for any one of us, in the hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Dabba ilaykum da al-umami qablakum." He says that the sicknesses of the people before you, they will seep into you. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam explains, what am I talking about? Al-hasad wal-baghda. That jealousy and ill feeling and hatred and so on and so forth, malice and not and having this bad feeling within yourself, this darkness and this sickness with regards to your feeling towards someone. This is something that is a sickness, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says. And then what does Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say? How bad is it for us? How bad is the jealousy and ill feeling and malice and so on and so forth? How bad is it for us? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Hiya al-haliqa." It is something that completely shaves things off, right? So let's understand this. He says, لا أقول تحرك الشعر ولكن تحرك الدين. I'm not saying that it is something that shaves off your hair somehow. That's not don't it but it completely shaves off your deen. So now just understand this parable and this example of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know this, just for example, this hair um on a person's hand. Okay? This takes years to grow. It takes years to grow, right? and so it's there, it's grown. Now, if you get a razor, right, and you just pass it over, what took years to grow will be completely clean and it'll be gone within seconds. It'll be gone, finished. It'll be gone within seconds, right? This is what hasad does to us. This is what malice does to us, right? So in the same way, and this is why many different hadith Rasulullah says, لا تحاسدوا ولا تباغضوا ولا تدابروا, that don't have jealousy for one another. Do not have hatred for one another. ولا تدابروا, and do not turn your backs to one another. وكونوا عباد الله إخوانا. And وكونوا عباد الله, O servants of Allah, be brothers and be sisters to one another. Right? So this is, I can't spend too much time on this lesson, but this is basically one of the biggest lessons. The first murder that ever happened because of hasad, because of jealousy, right? And even if we look at the first sin, shaitan not obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for doing sajda to Adam alayhi salam, this was based on jealousy, right? This is how great of a sickness it is, right? So anyways, so now what happens, he says قال لأقتلنك, he says, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you. I can't take that, you know what, all this happened, you get the beautiful daughter, and you know what, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted from you, he didn't accept from me, and so on and so forth. So he's getting all jealous, and his brother says قال إنما يتقبل الله من المتقين. This is the second lesson. His brother says that إنما يتقبل الله من المتقين, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only accepts from the God-fearing people. Meaning, a person that is doing whatever they're doing it with taqwa, they're doing it, and it has all the characteristics, the action has all the characteristics that it's supposed to have, that is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And so this is a point that we have to be very careful about. You know, subhanAllah, we may do a lot of actions, but are those actions accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? Always having this concern. How am I, when I'm doing my salah, how is my salah? How is my ikhlas in my salah? Right? How is my ikhlas in my salah? How is my khushu'? How is my concentration in my salah? How much am I actually thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How much is my mind wandering? Right? When I'm giving zakat, whatever you're doing, whatever action you're doing, checking yourself and saying, you know what, is this something that is going to be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? And so, and because of this, Ali radiallahu anhu he used to say that كونوا لقبول العمل أشد اهتماما منكم من العمل. He says that give more importance to the acceptance of your actions than the action itself. It's deep. It's a deep statement. He says that more important than just doing an action for the sake of the action, give importance to the acceptance of the action. What's the quality of what you are doing? Make sure that what you are doing is with quality. And this is why, even with regards to our fasting, even with regards to our fasting, you know, our Prophet ﷺ tells us, رب صائم ليس له من صيامه إلا الجوع ورب قائم ليس له من قيامه إلا السهر. That there are some fasting people who get nothing out of their fasting other than hunger. And there are some people that stand in Taraweeh and they get nothing from that except for staying awake, right? And so this is something that we have to always be worried about. Right? Always check on the quality of our actions. What is the quality of my action? How am I doing? Right? So anyway, so those are two lessons. Number one is hasad led to the first murder, and number two is that when the action is being done, making sure that we're checking that is this something that is acceptable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Two things. Now what happens? He says that I'm going to kill you. And then so Habil, he says, لَإِن بَسَطْتَ إِلَيَّ يَدَكَ لِتَقْتُلَنِي مَا أَنَا بِبَاسِطٍ يَدِي إِلَيْكَ لِأَقْتُلَكَ. Right? And the Mufassirin actually write that Habil was a stronger brother. He was stronger physically. He could have easily overpowered Qabil. But what happens? He says that if you raise your hand to kill me, to take my life, I will not raise my hand to take your life. I'm not going to do anything. If you want to go on that path and you want to go on that path of murder and so on, so be it. But I'm not going to go down that path. He says, "Inni akhafullah Rabbul Alamin." That indeed I fear Allah subhanahu wa taala, who is the Lord of the universe. And then he says, إني أريد أن تبوء بإثمي وإثمك فتكون من أصحاب النار وذلك جزاء الظالمين. He says that I'd rather let you bear my sin and bear your own sin. That if you take my life, then then you will have to bear not only your own sin, but you're gonna have to bear mine as well. You're gonna have a double load upon yourself, right? فَتَكُونَ مِنْ أَصْحَابِ النَّارِ, and you will be from the people of the fire. You will become from the people of the fire. وَذَلِكَ جَزَاءُ الظَّالِمِينَ, and this is the punishment of the oppressors, right? So now here we think when he says this that I'd rather have you uh bear my and take the weight of my sin and your sin. This is kind of he's saying it to him, but this is also like a deterrent. You know what, if you do this, then this is what is going to happen to you, right? Now what happens is Qabil, he's kind of he's in this state of extreme jealousy, but he knows what he's not what he wants to do is wrong. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَطَوَّعَتْ لَهُ نَفْسُهُ قَتْلَ أَخِيهِ, and so he convinced himself. Actually, the actual translation is, and so his self convinced him. So to better understand that, it means that the base self, the nafs, got him to do it. It convinced him that he should kill his brother. But if you want to just translate it within the way that we may understand it, that he convinced himself to kill his brother. فَقَتَلَهُ, and so he killed him. He murdered him. This was the first murder in human history. فَأَصْبَحَ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ, and so he became from the losers in this world and in the hereafter. Now, this is the first murder, first person that has passed away, first person that has died, right? Now he's there. There's a corpse of his brother. There's a dead body of his brother. He doesn't know what to do, right? What am I supposed to do? How do I get rid of the body? How do I, take care of the body and so on? How do I honor my brother? Whatever. He doesn't know what to do, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فبعث الله غرابا يبحث في الأرض ليريه كيف يواري سوءة أخيه. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a crow, يبحث في الأرض, and this crow started scratching at the earth. So it's mentioned within the narrations that there was another crow that was dead. There was a crow that was dead there. Um, so another crow comes and it starts scratching at the earth, it starts digging, and it basically gets this crow inside and covers it with dust. And this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught Qabil that this is what you're supposed to do for your brother. Right? This is how you're supposed to bury him and so on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ غُرَابًا يَبْحَثُ فِي الْأَرْضِ, and so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a crow which would scratch at the earth or dig at the earth. لِيُرِيَهُ كَيْفَ يُوَارِي سَوْءَةَ أَخِيهِ, so that to show him how he should bury the corpse of his brother. Right? Now he sees this and he's overcome with even more remorse. What did I actually do? Right? قال يا ويلتى أعجزت أن أكون مثل هذا الغراب فأواري سوءة أخي فأصبح من النادمين. He says that alas, يا ويلتى, to show extreme remorse, right? يا ويلتى, alas, have I failed to even be like this crow, and so I have to bury my brother, bury the corpse of my brother. فأصبح من النادمين, and so he became from those who from the regretful people. Right? So this is a story of Habil and Qabil. Main lessons here is that what, this was the first murder in history, and it came from jealousy. Jealousy is an extremely powerful emotion, extremely toxic, extremely powerful. Right? It can make someone do something that they wouldn't even think of doing otherwise. Right? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us. Number two is that being very careful about our actions and making them such to the best of our ability that they are acceptable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that من أجل ذلك, and for this reason, based on this story, كتبنا على بني إسرائيل أنه من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا ومن أحياها فكأنما أحيا الناس جميعا. This is like a principle within the deen. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that due to this reason, this is the first murder that happened. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we ordained upon the Banu Israel, and in doing so upon everyone, right? أنه من قتل نفس, that whosoever kills a soul, whosoever murders a soul, بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض, and it is unjustly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says بغير نفس, and it is not in retaliation of another soul being taken. So not a life for a life. أو فساد في الأرض, and it is not because of corruption in the earth, meaning there's no legal reason for that person's life to be taken, right? Islamically, right? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَكَأَنَّمَا قَتَلَ النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. If a person has killed someone that is innocent, then it is as if this person has killed all of humanity, right? This is the sanctity of life within our deen. This is how sacred life is. Even one life, it is as if you have killed all people. This is how sacred it is. So if you break that sanctity, it's as if you have done it with everyone. Right? It's the same. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then goes on to say, وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. And whosoever saves a life, it's as if they have saved the life of all of humanity. Right? So what we get from here is the weight of the sanctity of life. Right? Just how sacred life is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Which is why even when why is it when you're slaughtering an animal and you're doing it in a way that you want it to be halal, right? You have to take the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're taking a life. You're only allowed to take that life, and it only becomes halal to take that life if you take it in the name of the one that gave that life in the first place. Right? Just food for thought when I know that some of us we just freely eat out and so on and so forth. This is something to think about with regards to halal and haram and so on, right? The wisdom behind halal. But anyways, so here this is the second this a third lesson from the passage. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you take a life unjustly, it's as if you have taken the life of all of mankind. It is extremely heavy in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you save a life, then it's as if you are saving the life of all of humanity. It is extremely heavy in the weight in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is something that is extremely valuable. So in our situation right now, when we're self-isolating and self-isolating with sacrifice. I mean, it's difficult being in our homes, Ramadan, and no very little social kind of physical social life and so on and so forth. It's difficult, but we're doing it for a reason. That we're not only doing it for yourself, you're not only doing it to save yourself, and this should be your intention. That you're not only doing it so that you stay safe, you're doing it to save the lives of others. And every life that you potentially save, this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, even if you save one life, it is as if you are saving the life of all of humanity. Right? So, anyways, these were different. We'll just finish the ayat. The verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ جَاءَتْهُمْ رُسُلُنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ. And indeed, our messengers came to them with very clear signs. Now speaking about the Banu Israel. Okay? ثُمَّ إِنَّ كَثِيرًا مِّنْهُمْ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ فِي الْأَرْضِ لَمُسْرِفُونَ. And then a lot of them, inna kathiran minhum, a great number from amongst them, even after the messengers were sent down to them, right? Fil ardi lamusrifun, they are transgressing within the earth, right? So, anyways, this is one passage. We're at 28 minutes. Just quickly, one ayah because it's going to be linked. This ayah is going to be linked to something that we're going to talk about when I do it next time, not tomorrow, but the day after when we're speaking about Surah Al-A'raf, right? So here just one short ayah and a very very potent kind of lesson for us, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ayah number 94, Surah Al-Ma'idah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ليبلونكم الله بشيء من الصيد تناله أيديكم ورماحكم ليعلم الله من يخافه بالغيب فمن اعتدى بعد ذلك فله عذاب أليم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that all you who believe. So now, just to kind of to kind of set the background for this ayah, right? Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they're going for Umrah. They're going for Umrah, the Umrah of Hudaybiyah, right? So they're going, and they were eventually stopped from going for Umrah. They did Umrah al-Qadha the next year. They made it up the next year, right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is with them. Sahaba radiallahu anhum are going there for going for Umrah. Now, one of the things when you're going for Umrah, you come into the state of Ihram. Now, Ihram is for men, it's wearing those two pieces of cloth, but it's also a state. Now, in that state, you're not allowed to take the life. You're not allowed to kill animals. You're not allowed to hunt, right? You're not allowed to hunt land animals and so on and so forth. Right? This is one of the rulings, right? Because you're in a state of peace and so on. So So now the Sahaba radiallahu anhum are on the way to Mecca. They're on the way to Mecca for this Umrah of Hudaybiyah, right? They're in the state of Ihram, right? And they're carrying whatever normally a person would carry just for travel, just for safety and so on. So some of them have spears and so on, but very, very, very minimal, right? So now what happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, so okay, so they're not allowed to hunt, right? Now during this travel, right? So normally in the desert, you know what? Once in a while they'd come upon an animal. You can go hunt animals and so on, but you have to make an effort to hunt an animal, right? To kill game, right? Um, Now, but what happens is this time when they're not allowed to hunt, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it such that they're surrounded by animals. The animals are just coming and grazing and everything around them. And the Sahaba radiallahu anhum said that, you know what, if we just came off of our conveyance, we'd be able to touch these animals with our hands. And even if we had a spear, we'd be able to just kind of reach out and we'd be able to touch the animal, right? So it was completely accessible, but they knew that they weren't supposed to do it. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about that situation, right? يا أيها الذين آمنوا ليبلونكم الله بشيء من الصيد تناله أيديكم ورماحكم ليعلم الله من يخافه بالغيب. That all you who believe, indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will most definitely test you with a little bit of game that is in the range, game being the animal that you normally hunt, with that will be that it is in the range of your hands and your spears, meaning that it's going to be extremely accessible to you. That sin and that disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that killing of the game while in the state of ihram, it's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want. It's something that is prohibited, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it so that it's extremely accessible to them. Just have to do is just push the spear with a little bit of strength, and khalas, the animal will be finished. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doing this with you? لِيَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ. Number one, it's a big test for you. And why is this? لِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ مَن يَخَافُ بِالْغَيْبِ. So that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can distinguish who fears Him in secret. Right? Who fears Him in secret? When you have that capability. And the reason I'm talking about this is because this is the situation that we are in our day-to-day lives, living in a Western country, right? Their sin is extremely accessible, right? With the internet has some amazing things, one of which is what we're doing right now, right? We're able to talk and have halaqas and so on and so forth, despite not being able to be in the physical presence of one another, right? But there's a lot of evil that comes with internet as well. There's a lot of accessible sin with the internet as well, right? And so on and so forth. We look at our lives, right? SubhanAllah, you look, alcohol is extremely accessible. Marijuana is extremely accessible. Extramarital relations is extremely accessible, right? All these things, going on the wrong path is extremely accessible for us. Now, why? Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Why are we in this kind of situation? We can relate to this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَيَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will most definitely test you. This is our test. Our test is, what do you do when you're surrounded and it's so easy for you to do sin? Right? What do you do? And what is the only thing that is going to stop you? لِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ مَن يَخَافُهُ بِالْغَيْبِ. So that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can distinguish who fears Him in secret. This is what it is. This is what the test is. And subhanAllah, we know that there's a hadith of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm going to try to finish within a minute, inshallah. There's a hadith of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wherein our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, sometimes we think about good deeds, and we think about salah, and we think about zakah, and we think about the deeds that we do as acts of worship, but staying away from sin is also an act of worship, right? An active worship. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Ittaqil maharim, takun a'bad nas." That save yourself from the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made haram. Takun a'bad nas, and you will be the biggest worshiper. Right? So here, this is a point where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the fact that, sin is being made accessible. For something that is prohibited is being made extremely accessible to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. Why? To test who is fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in secret. When things are very accessible, right? So this is a lesson for us. And then when we do Surah Al-A'raf, there's going to be another story. Hopefully we can get to that inshallah with regards to the Banu Israel, and a certain group from amongst the Banu Israel who lived on the seaside, and there was a test for them too there too, where something that was prohibited was extremely accessible, and we'll see how they dealt with it and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about them, inshallah. So with that, we'll finish, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our sitting here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept my talking, accept your listening, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this a means of khair, make this a means of hidayah, make this a means of guidance for us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala connect us to the Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create a love of the Quran and a love of His word in our hearts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to memorize as much of His Quran as possible. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever we may have forgotten, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant it to us to, again, whatever we do not know, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the knowledge of that. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it such that we make the Quran a priority in our life. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Inshallah, so I just again remember to make dua for each other. Remember to make dua for each other. We're not in the physical presence of one another, but one of the du'as that is accepted the most is dua and dahr al-ghaib. That dua that is made when someone is not with you. So if I make dua for you as community members, if you make dua for me, if you make dua for people that are not with you, making dua for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them, then this is readily accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And not only that, there is an angel that is appointed that when you're making dua for someone that is not with you, that angel says, وَلَكَ بِمِثْلِهِ, that may you also have exactly the same. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati ma yasifun wa salamun ala al mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa